My name is Janet Mawiyo. I'm currently visiting the Boston area to try and connect with some of the, folks in diaspora. I'm from Kenya. Of course, we are a middle income country now, and things are moving fast, and we're working hard to make it a better country. I represent an organization called the Kenya Community Development Foundation. We've been around for the last 22 years. And the unique thing about us is that we promote community-driven development. We have been working to encourage ordinary communities to take charge of their own development and be at the driver's seat, rather than keep looking to the West or look at some other international folks to help them, get their act together. So we strive to help communities understand some of the issues that are affecting them. They could be issues of livelihoods, they could be issues of segments of their community, like, challenges of disability, challenges experienced by the girl child. These days we have a big problem with the boy child, so we also are looking at all the emerging new issues and trying our best to help communities think through solutions. And I think the unique thing about us is that we help them also recognize the resources they have among themselves and together with each other in addressing them. So within that context, we are engaging across from communities to companies to individuals and on most of the issues that affect them. It could be, a community in a rural area, maybe where there isn't electricity, helping them think through how can they put a solar system in place, for example, so that their kids can have extra hours of prep, in the evening. And we've figured a model where they are able to maybe contribute 50-50. They raise 50, we help them think through ways they can raise the 50, and then we give them the 50 as a way of helping them take ownership. We use the same model, or we've used the same model to do like a girls' dormitory. We've done, some libraries. We've done various things that are responding to the issues on the ground. And so in my time here at the diaspora, I think with the diaspora, what we are trying to do is to see in what ways can diaspora, whom we see as part of, the Kenyan stakeholders, how can they engage effectively and in a sustainable way with some of the issues that are happening in Kenya. And here I have in mind things like, I know already diaspora give a lot, especially to their families, but we also see diaspora as some of the key stakeholders who need to be part of the big developments that are coming, that are happening in the country. So there are people who went to school, for example, in a certain school, and I don't think you forget where you come from. You may think of an opportunity to, for example, set up an endowment for your school. We have the possibility of endowments. We actually have 27 community groups that have set up endowments with us. And we handle that under what we call the KCDF Trust. So the KCDF Foundation is the implementing arm which looks at now the practical side of the different programs that we are running, while the trust deals with the investment side and trying to see how can we grow resources that allows the organization to be able to be responsive. We look at development not just as money, but we look at development as people understanding how did they get to that point where there's a challenge. If you look at food security, for example, communities need to understand how they are contributing towards like not having enough rain by the way they are treating the environment. When they make that connection, they'll start conservation automatically, and they'll start friendly farming methods which help conserve as opposed to just extracting from the ground and not realizing that you're actually degrading and encouraging soil erosion. When you take a kid to school, for example, in a rural part of Kenya, you need to be engaging with the school, and we encourage those mechanisms which allow the community to engage with the school committee, of course, within government policy, so that they are able to understand what are those things that are causing the kids not to do well and not to transition effectively from one class to another. So we use the name community because within a community you have all the groups and the issues are just as diverse. And when we think about how the diaspora can be involved, we have actually in the last, since 2005/6 there, created what we call the Friends of KCDF, US chapter. And it's actually a 501(c), which means if you give towards some of the projects in Kenya, you are able to get the tax benefits that this country gives you. So we think there are great opportunities to engage. I'm talking about engaging because we are not just looking at the money from diaspora. We think Kenya has moved so far. There are a lot of things that communities can do for themselves. And so what we think would be useful is actually a partnership with the diaspora, which allows them to engage with us on the ground. We've been on the ground for the last 22 years, as I said, with audited, and qualified audits throughout all those years. We have worked with other international funders. So for example, we've had projects funded by the World Bank, by the Ford Foundation, who really played an instrumental role in helping set up Kenya Community Development Foundation, KCDF. We use the short form. We've worked with the Rockefeller Foundation. We have worked with Comic Relief. So we've worked with what you'd call conventional international funders who've been supportive of what we call community-driven development. So surely, if we have worked with those kind of actors, it means we do have, some credibility and track record that you can trust. And as I said, our view is by engaging you, we are in a position to be in Kenya and ensure the ground is ready for some of the thoughts and ideas you have. Through the US chapter here, the Friends chapter, it is possible for us to engage with some of the ideas you may have. It could be things you feel you could be part of in your county. It could be maybe your past school that you went to and you have a group of people who would be interested in helping set up a fund. It could be a passion. Maybe you are interested in disability or you'd like to engage with scholarships for girls or for other needy children. It could be maybe you are interested in youth. For example, how do we help the youth become good entrepreneurs and get employment? These are all some of the things that we are dealing with in Kenya, and we feel that the diaspora cannot afford to be left out in being part of the transformation that is happening. And so I'm here to say that through the Friends, you are in a position to link up with us, and we will help you prepare the ground that needs to be prepared and come up with a relevant area of intervention where you are not just a giver of money, but you actually are part of the transformation that we would want to see. So one of the ways in which we can engage with the different groups in diaspora is actually, I'm using the word engage deliberately, because we see development as something that must be driven by the people. So there is a strong case to find out where are the people. You're not just throwing things at them, and how relevant is your interest to them. So that process here in diaspora for me means that it's possible to figure out things that maybe you would want to explore that touch on your county, for example, because I don't think you can forget where you came from. If you came from Garissa, you come from Garissa. And maybe you could set up a scholarship fund that could benefit girls or needy kids in Garissa. We already host various scholarships in that line, and this is an opportunity. You may also want to support perhaps maybe some of the education by supporting maybe the growth of libraries or any other particular thing that is relevant depending on the needs on the ground. And a good engagement process through our Friends chapter here in the US, which is what we would be recommending, because all giving would come through the chapter in the US, would allow us to explore your interest and then look at the situation on the ground, and then we can come back to you and confirm this is possible. And we are not looking at big chunks of money. We found there's a lot of power in regular small donations. Even within Kenya, we found when there are people are willing to give 500 shillings every month, and by the way, 50,000 shillings can keep a child in high school for a whole year. 50,000 shillings. I guess that is $500 or something like that. So the opportunities are immense, and groups that are interested in a particular thing or are interested in pulling their resources together, we would want to have those conversations. And through the group that is here, and actually our website is emerging, that will be www.friendsofkcdf.org. That website will also be one of those places that you can find this kind of information. You'll be pleased to know that the former ambassador here, Elkanah Odembo, was actually one of the founders of KCDF. There's another lady, Dr. Joyce Malombe, based in DC, who worked with Elkanah in creating the idea of a foundation that is looking at community-driven development. Currently, our chair of the foundation is actually the proprietor of the Parents magazine. I think any Kenyan would know Parents magazine because it's been around in many places for a long time. Mrs. Eunice Mathu, she is actually the current chair of the foundation. So we've actually worked with a very reputable people in our governance teams who have continued to give us connections with the wider groups of Kenyans, and we continue to involve all kinds of businesses and companies. For example, in Nairobi now, NIC Bank has chosen to adopt a school nearby because we don't look at giving just as money. The staff from NIC end up giving mentorship hours. We've had a couple of them very interested in the problem facing the boy child, and so they've adopted a school. So there are possibilities for maybe companies you are linked to in Nairobi having conversations with us and also finding ways of getting them to engage. So we see this whole space as for everybody, not for the rich or the poor. It's actually for all of us. And so there's room for us to have conversations with you, and we hope in the coming weeks we'll be willing to look at the different opportunities to meet the different groups, maybe people from an area, professionals in a particular area, and explore what could we do together that would help support communities to drive their own development and have the confidence that they can actually change their own lives. Before I finish, I just want to give one example of one community actually in Maasai land. It's called Nikoilale. This is somewhere, on your way to Masai Mara. This particular community, as you know, Maasais are pastoralists. We've worked with that group in trying to figure out what's relevant for them. And we were quite surprised when we realized the thing that was really important to them was creating some feeder schools, class 1 to 4, which would allow the children to be safe when they are going to school, because the bigger school, which has all the classes, is a little far, and there are cases where kids would be attacked by lions on the way to school. So the community have told us that, if we create some feeder schools around our village, this will make sure our kids are safe. Because some of our Maasais know how to avoid lions when they are a little older. There's a way they know how to figure out. And so they did the budget of the school, and of course many of them were not having hard cash, but they have their animals, and the women tend to own a lot of sheep and goats. The men both young have other cows, and on agreed days they looked at the resources they had, brought those animals together, having figured the budget that they needed, 4 million shillings, to create 3 feeder schools around their area. And they figured a way of looking after the animals for a while to fatten them, and on an appointed day did an auction. When this community did an auction, they actually raised the 2 million shillings that they needed. And by the way, the county also got very interested and realized that these people are actually moving without us. We might as well be supportive. So that school, I remember, was present when they were now opening the feeder schools, and the community was so, confident and happy. I remember this mzee was saying, my daughter will be going to my school. That's a confidence we really want to have among communities, so they are not having a mind that they have to depend on somebody. When you know you have put something, that school, you can't hit a window, because that is a school the local person has put in money. And this is just a very small example of something that is so powerful, that creates confidence in the community, that helps them look at the resource they have, even if it is looking different from what we think is conventional resource. But this is just one example. And now those kids are safe as they go to a school nearby, and as they get older, they then move to the main school, which has been put, of course, by the government. This community has since moved on to create a health center, and by that time the county also was now even more involved, because they realized these people are really moving, and they've managed to get that health center available, which also has a maternity wing, which is also transforming the women in that area. So I can give you loads and loads of examples. We have kids who are coming out of university. Actually, we have a couple of young girls who are now working in different places, who've gone through a scholarship program from very needy backgrounds. But we also don't look again at the scholarship only. We attach that to a very strong mentorship element, so which is holistic, helping them think about the health, their own, reproductive health, financial literacy, and even skills about writing their CV. So even when we talk about engaging in a scholarship program, for example, it's not just the scholarship, it's actually a holistic arrangement where the child gets the money, yes, but also gets supported. Because this is a kid who doesn't have a parent who can really help them understand how to face the world. And this is the kind of difference you can make, by becoming part of these kind of changes, even if you live here. And you never know, one day you may come back to Kenya and, you'll be proud to know that you've been part of the transformation that is happening in that country. So I really look forward to engaging with many of your groups that will connect through our chapter here. Thank you. So to wind up, I just want to say that you folks who live in diaspora are actually very important. I'm sure you know the big contribution you are making through your remittances in our economy, and so we appreciate you. We know you are buying lots of properties in Nairobi and other cities within Kenya. And part of prosperity is actually being part of the process of the transformation that is happening. And giving back is one of the ways we show we have also been blessed. So I'm actually holding one of the brochures of KCDF, which you can find in our website. And it explains actually our values. It gives you a good chance to see our theory of change, how we expect to change, which is what I've been talking about, and some few examples of what we do. It also gives you a list of some of our directors and trustees. And on our website, which I said is www.kcdf.or.ke, you will also find our annual reports. You actually will find our audited reports. Our most recent audited report also on the website. We document quite a bit of our work. You'll also find there. So feel free to visit there as well. At least you'll begin to know the organization that is really operational on the ground and trying to do the work that I've been talking about. But of course, here in the US, we have also some of our lead people, and their contacts will be on the screen, so that you are able to know whom you can contact around Boston area, around DC area. There are a couple of them, and without you get the details of that. But the website again is www.friendsofkcdf.org. So I think we'll also put that on the screen so that you are able to see. So would love to connect with you, because we think you are a very important resource. We know you have great networks which can make a lot of difference to communities in Kenya. You have the numbers, so your $5-10 can make a lot of difference to the lives of very ordinary folks in Kenya, and we want you to be part of that. And you really matter, and I'm hoping in this trip we have a chance to meet some this evening, but also in the future we hope to meet as many of you as expressed interest. There is an email address that you pick up on the website, which you can also reach us or reach the team here in DC. And I look forward to connecting with you very soon in the coming, months. Thank you.